Yeah, in 2 minutes, 1 minute. ¿Ya ven?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste, and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with us from wherever you are zooming in the world. Ashley is not with us today, and so I am going to try to do everything that she does. So I'd like to say welcome to this weekly forum that's being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, which is a legally registered research and publishing company that has been operating since 2010. In order to continue this weekly program, we are asking, of course, for your suggestions and volunteerism. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on a poster and all promotional material. So you can contact Dr. Mahabil for those details. We just want to remind you that yesterday and in some places, Friday, we Muslims celebrated Eid al-Fitr, and I want to thank you all very much for your support during the month of Ramadan. At this time, Hindus are observing Navratri, and Roman Catholics are still observing Lent. So it's a wonderful coincidence that we've had all three very important religious observances happening at the same time. And so there's a lot that's happening in the cosmos as a result. And one of the reasons for today's topic is so that we can discuss how sometimes these things can influence us. I'm welcoming our speakers, and I would just like to remind you that we are recording on Zoom and live streaming on the YouTube channel of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. Welcome to all of you on YouTube at this time, by the way. To our speakers, to avoid intrusions from trolls, our IT manager has muted everyone. So please do not admit anyone, do not unmute anyone, and do not allow anyone to share your screen. Thank you very much for cooperating. This is the second part of our discussion on past life regression, hypnosis, and therapy. Last week, the conversation was very interesting, and one of the speakers, Tulin Schimberg, said we cannot be objective to ourselves. Meditation may help up to a point, but to go deeper into the dark parts of the psyche, we need help, especially for shadow experiences. And she was talking really about what past life regression can do. So for those of you who were not here and who may not be aware, past life regression is a therapeutic technique using hypnosis to access subconscious memories believed to be from past lives. And our speaker will clarify everything I'm going to say. Often guided by therapists, sessions involve deep relaxation to explore experiences from past lives. The objective is really to heal. These types of experiences bring awareness of the past forward to the present, and some of these sessions may also explore connections with people from the past who are living in the present life. So today, we hope to further delve into this topic with the experiences of our two speakers, with the hope that for some of us who may be trying to understand our behavior and our beliefs, If it is that we have been perhaps in a past life an indentured immigrant living in a European colony, we may see things from a very different perspective. Let me introduce you to our first speaker today. And this is Elmiek Drucker of the UK. She's formerly from the Netherlands. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and is a trainer and supervisor for the Past Life Regression Academy. She's also a level 3 QHHT practitioner, and she will tell us a little bit more about that, and a Reiki master. So welcome, Elmiek. We are very, very happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak about something I'm really passionate about, clearly. Let me share my screen and start the slide. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So let me start my timer as well so I can keep track of the time here for you. So my name is Elmiek Drucker, or Ellie. I go by Ellie. As Shalima said, I'm from Holland, but I've been in England for the last over 20 years. I'm a hypnotherapist, regression therapist, and I specialize in between life spiritual regression. That is what I teach for the academy here as well in the UK. I'm a level 3 QHHT practitioner. And I thought it might be interesting to mention for people the series Journeys into the Soul that is streaming on Gaia and Amazon Prime. And that shows, I believe there's either 30 or 40 between life regressions and QHHT sessions that were filmed different places of the US, different countries in Europe, and also in Australia. And in those programs, they're about half an hour long, and it starts with a short interview of the client, a short interview with the practitioner. Then it shows something of the interview and something of the actual, so you get footage of the actual session, and it's followed up 2 weeks after. So that might give a really good insight into what happens during a therapy session, because that's often a bit of a mystery for people. The episodes I was featured in are available on my website as well, which I'll give you at the end of the presentation, and available on Amazon Prime and Gaia. So what I'll be talking about today is, we'll make a clear distinction, because the terms are sometimes a little bit confusing, the difference between past life regression, QHHT, and regression therapy. We'll look at some of the research in this area. I'll then talk about what a session looks like, regression therapy, and what are some of the techniques that are used. I'll give you a few examples of what happens in my client sessions, and then we'll broaden the scope to include between lives regression, where we look at the period in between lives. I'll look at what a session like that looks like, and I'll end with giving you a few sources for further reading and further information. So looking at first the differences between these terms, we can see that past life regression is a guided process in which participants recall experiences they perceive as belonging to a past life. So, for example, if I have a young female client lying on my therapy couch and she describes her body as being the body of an old man, that's clearly not current life. And that is mainly done in past life regression out of curiosity. People are just curious. They've heard about past lives. They want to know about one of their past lives. But because there is no mandatory reporting to a professional board, it's very difficult to give very precise authoritative figures of how many past life regressionists there are worldwide. So I just simply don't know. Looking at QHHT, that abbreviation stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. That's pioneered by a lady called Dolores Cannon, the late lovely Dolores Cannon. And that is a process that is a structured hypnosis designed to access the individual's subconscious to gain an insight, to gain guidance. And that may include past life experiences. Basically, a client, we send a client back to, or not back, we send a client to a period that's interesting and important for them to remember. And some people indeed experience what might be perceived as past life experience. Sometimes they go back to a few scenes in the current life. And the official QHHT organization lists practitioners in 130 countries worldwide, and they mention thousands of practitioners, but they don't give exact numbers. Now, regression therapy is what I will mainly talk about today, is a therapeutic approach using guided relaxation hypnosis to explore past experiences, including early life memories, but again, with the goal of achieving a therapeutic goal. The Past Life Regression Academy, who I trained for in Sweden and the UK, has trained over 500 practitioners in 29 countries worldwide. So that's just my academy alone. Looking now at some of the research into this area, it just, the research I've quoted here tried to capture what people experience after a regression therapy. And these will look at things like pain reduction to general life outcomes through surveys. And the largest of these studies I looked at was a study by Andy Tomlinson and colleagues. And they looked at 865 clients, and they found the clients, and they had various types of physical pain. And they found a reduction in the stress scores from 7.9 out of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most intense, from 7.9 to 0.9 in an average of 1.6 sessions. So again, that doesn't explain why that happened. It just goes to show how people feel afterwards. Then David Graham coordinated a survey with participants from over 30 countries, and he found about 84% said they noticed some improvement after regression, and about half said their symptoms were mostly or completely gone. Then the last study, Trivedi and Trivedi, that involved roughly 180 participants, and they said about 55% noticed reduced anxiety, about half had improvement of stress management, and only a very small number, about 3%, reported any negative effects. So key takeaway, I think, from just these three studies is that regression therapy is found by many clients to be helpful in terms of managing anxiety, lifting mood, processing emotions. However, it is very limited. There's often no control group. So it does have that caveat. Looking now at the session, or the structure of what a session looks like. Unfortunately, special effects budget in regression therapy is not very large, so we don't use DeLoreans, the fancy car from the Back to the Future films. We use hypnosis or guided images to take people back to the past. We can only hope. We can try and bring that in, but we take people back to the past to go to the source of the issue. And with that, it's not so much about the details of what happened in that past life. It's using the experiences that the client reports to facilitate somatic release and emotional catharsis. So it could be that the client says, "Oh yeah, that reminds me. I had a dream a few days ago." Or, "Oh, I'm aware of the color pink." "Oh, I'm seeing a castle in front of me." It's whatever the client brings in. That is what we work with, because I don't ask any leading questions. That the questions during a session I would ask are things like, "Tell me what you experience. Describe your clothing to me. What time of day is it? What does the temperature feel like? Are you alone? Is there anybody in the room with you?" So whatever the client experiences, it will be coming from them. And so it's really about making meaning. It's about finishing unfinished business, so that once the business is finished, the symptom doesn't have to keep recurring in the current life. So in an actual session, when a client comes to see me, obviously, we check for contraindicators. We get a really good, clear picture of how the presenting issue is affecting the client now. And then whilst we talk about it, if the client starts to, the body might start to shake a little bit, the client might start to feel upset, or there might be tears as they're describing how they're feeling. And if that is the case, we simply bridge them by taking them even further back into history to the first time they felt like that. And if that's not the case, if the client is able to calmly talk about their issue, then we might use some hypnosis, again, to bring them back to the very first time they felt like that. And then once we have explored that, once it's pretty clear where the issue was, then we work with it therapeutically. And again, that is where the most therapeutic bang for our buck is. We might, one of the most effective tools we use is we talk to the perpetrator. And hopefully you'll see that in some of the client sessions that I'm going to talk about next. By talking to the perpetrator, and in the vast majority of cases, asking the person, why did you do that to me? It really helps to create an understanding. Sometimes it's for the person to hear somebody say sorry to them, or for them to say sorry. It's about sometimes reuniting with loved ones, getting an understanding of why that happened. Sometimes it's working out, what did I learn from it? Why did I choose this experience? It can involve a role reversal life. It can involve gifts that are given from loved ones or perpetrators in the past to the person now. It can involve physical body therapy. If a client was killed in a past life because there was a sword stuck in their side, it might be a question of energetically removing that sword. So it's anything and everything that couldn't happen at the time. We're doing that now. And because the client is very much associated, it's very powerful. After all of that therapeutic work is done, we then link it, because clearly the client comes with an issue in the current life. So we must make sure that we transfer the learning, the understanding, the insights to the now. And having been empowered, to say to the person, hey, why did you do that to me? Is really powerful, and it transfers very well to the current life. We then check, has indeed a shift taken place? We then future pace by having the client imagining what it could have been like now that that shift has taken place. And then we debrief with the client, offer a cup of tea, make sure they're good to go before they go home and resume normal everyday life. And then looking at a few of these cases, these are just images that I picked to help me remember which ones I was going to talk about. But I must preface this with a little warning, because as you can appreciate, if we're going back to the source of an issue, that is likely to be something unpleasant, if not traumatic. Especially in the case of this first example, this is a client that came to me with a phobia of trees. Nothing had ever happened with regards to a tree, but she was just very scared of them. Took her back to the source of the issue, and unfortunately, the source of it was caused by her being raped in a forest. Now, you might think the rape is actually what caused the fear in the current life, but it wasn't, because as a result of the rape, the client, she got pregnant. As client is having the baby, mother walks in. Your father is never to learn about this, and mother takes the baby away. The rest of my client's life is actually quite nice. She marries a nice man, has 2 more children, not a problem. When we work with it therapeutically, the first thing we did was energetically speak to the mother. And the first thing she said to her mother was, why did you take my baby away? So that mother could understand, well, it would have brought so much shame onto the family. Your father would have kicked us out. Just to create that bit of understanding. Then really importantly, we spoke to the baby. We sometimes work with props. So I gave her a pillow so client could feel energetically the baby in her arms, lots of tears there. The client could express her love to the baby, saying, I'm so sorry I couldn't raise you. The baby then said, I don't blame you. The baby explained that the mother grandma had taken her to a nice house where the lady there looked after her as if it was her own baby. So the baby didn't blame her, but there was a lovely moment there between the two. Then we talked to the client's father and her husband, and the whole thing, I had a baby, was so much more important than the actual traumatic event that caused the baby to be there. Obviously, we did talk to the perpetrator, saying, you have no right to violate my body. This is my body, so that the person could say sorry. And then after that, for the reframing, I brought her back to the forest and say, tell me how, knowing what you know now, tell me how that now feels different. And she said, oh, the trees don't look so tall anymore. So by just creating that understanding, and now it was a single session, she's fine now, absolutely fine. The second session, and I apologize for going a bit quick. I'm trying to fit a lot in. The second session is actually featured on the.
Ellie.
Sorry, yeah.
Ellie, if you don't mind, you take your time. Slow down.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we have one other speaker, and we will have some time for questions.
Okay.
So take your time.
Thank you. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. So the second session was with an entrepreneur. He had his own business. And he tended to be worried when he had too much work, and he tended to be worried when he didn't have enough work, because too much work, how are we going to get it all done? Not enough work, how am I going to pay the wages? And the past life we went back to, it wasn't so shocking. It was a past life as like a little boy living on the street who didn't have much money, but tried to make the best of it. And the big shift in that session came from the past life little boy that he was giving his shoes to the current life present, and the shoes were pretty much dirty rags. But what that told the client was, hey, in my life now, I have 5 pairs of shoes, I have trainers, I have dress shoes, and it's not so bad, basically, because that little boy had nothing and he gave me his shoes. I think he gave the past life him a nice warm coat to keep him warm or something. So sometimes a shift can be quite elegant, quite simple, but still very meaningful. And the last example I wanted to point out was a lovely session with quite a young client. I think she was in her 20s, and she had a very severe spider phobia. We went back into a past life, in this case again, where quite a primitive life. She was living in some tribe in the jungle, and it was her turn to guard the village. So she was standing on guard. As she was doing, or I think it was male in the past, I can't remember. As the client was doing this, a spider fell on her arm. And as the client went to, brush the spider off, the spider bit. And as a result of the spider bite, the client died. So in this case, the perpetrator was the spider. So he talked to the spider and said, well, the client said, well, why did you bite me? And the spider's reply, why did you hit me? Which, of course, was true from the spider's perspective. So what followed there was a conversation to sort of almost get to know each other. And the client, the spider, could share that, actually, it's quite difficult being a spider because they don't look very pretty. They're hairy. They look a bit scary, so people try and shun them. So it's quite lonely being a spider. And that created some understanding. So it's almost like that scene from a Pixar movie, Over the Hedge, where the animals see a big hedge for the first time, and one of the animals calls it Steve. He said, well, I can't be scared of Steve because now I know that it's Steve rather than the scary thing. So because the client had met this spider and had created like a relationship with it, it reduced the fear. And very importantly as well, after speaking with the spider, we spoke to the villagers, and the client said, I'm so sorry, I let you down. I didn't protect you. And they said, well, actually, no, thank you. Because before client died, they weren't aware that little critters in the jungle could be poisonous. So they said, but because you died, we now know that. So thank you for that. And again, that was a single session, and that greatly reduced clients' fear. So it's really helpful sometimes to have these conversations just to create understanding, to finish unfinished business. It's like in the case of that last client, she died thinking I failed. But because of the session, actually, I did my people a great service. They now know. So if we broaden now our view to include between lives as well, between lives goes much further. And it's less about what happened, like what we saw in regression therapy, and much more about why it all matters. It's like, again, I said, it's the period between the last death and the birth in the current life. I can tend to compare it in my classes. It's like going to the travel agency and booking your next holiday, the next holiday being, your current life as the person you are now. And the advantages of going back to a time like that really is to know you're not a victim. You chose your existence here. In all likelihood, you chose your experiences. You booked a holiday to a cold country. You chose perhaps parents that weren't very affluent, or you perhaps chose to come in with certain health challenges. And also finding out, why did you choose that? What were you meant to gain from that? It helps to gain perspective, because here on earth we tend to identify very much with our bodies, paying the rent, getting to work on time, and all of that, and we're very much focused on the human experience. Actually, we're, as the saying goes, we're a spiritual being having a human experience and not the other way around. And it also helps people to realize there's a lot of help out there in the form of spirit guides, elders, wise ones. So those are some of the benefits that people experience having a between life regression. As I said before, it tends to be especially helpful for what we term non-human resonant souls. And these are souls that they do incarnate on earth, but generally less often. They are souls that it's a different hertz level. It's a different vibration. A human resonant soul might vibrate like this, whereas a non-human resonant soul might vibrate like this or like that. It's just different. It's not better or worse than a human resonant soul. It's like the difference between a dog and a cat. One is not better than the other. It's just different. And they tend to come to Earth to help with the shift. We're all aware that a big shift that is going on in the world at the moment. And that's what these non-human resonant souls come to help with. And they also come to learn about human emotions. And it's quite striking, the effect that we see in QHHT sessions. If anybody's familiar with Dolores Cannon and has seen any of her interviews, she used to say that after a session, clients do not remember anything. They are somnambulistic. After the session, she would have to tell them what they said because they would not remember. But now, because we're going through this shift, clients are far more aware. So there doesn't have to be this great big distinction between, higher mind and the personality. So we're getting many more non-human resonant souls now. And the main characteristic, or one of the main difficulties they often have, is they feel homesick. I've had clients coming to me after me talking about a subject like this, crying, because they say nobody understands. Can you imagine going to your family doctor saying, I'm homesick? It's very difficult to understand. Clients saying, what do you mean, Mum, you're homesick? You're home with us. We love you. But clients intuitively feel, this is not home. I don't know where my home is. I know this isn't it, but I don't know where. So getting to connect or to go home in the session is incredibly healing for them. They often also feel like they don't belong. No one gets them. They're all alone. They prefer to be alone or with their dog, with their cat, or to be out in nature. Often they have autoimmune disorders, or that they get a label. People intuitively, oh, you're a bit weird, so I'm going to just stick a label on you. And it's just the physicality of being in the body is sometimes, in a human body, is sometimes just challenging for them. They can feel suicidal. They can abuse drugs or alcohol just as an escape because it's so difficult for them. Many of them have special gifts, any of the clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudiency, and they don't understand the harshness of society. They say racism, corruption, greed, it's just incomprehensible. It physically hurts them. So again, for clients like that, to connect with home, the place finally where they're home, where things make sense, and for them to know, oh, I'm not crazy, because that's what they think. I'm the only one of my family. I'm an alien. I'm the only one who's like this. No, actually, I'm not. I'm just a business traveler. I'm here with a mission. And what is my mission? Oh, I'm here to spread light. I'm here to whatever it is. So that can be incredibly helpful for them. So for them, remembering who they truly are, they're just not some weirdo, not the odd one in the family. No, they have a different vibration, they have a different reason for being here. And reminding them what that reason is can be really helpful for them. So looking now at generally the structure of a between life regression, Michael Newton was the pioneer in this field. And he described certain stages, certain phases that many clients experience. But with between life spiritual regression, there's no normal. As the joke goes, normal is a setting on the dryer, not in regression, because the sessions are very different. But generally, we need deep hypnosis for clients to experience or to remember these experiences. The way I tend to bring people into the between life state is to go via the most recent past life. So I explore that in a few highlights, a few important days, then we cross over, we go through the death. So the soul needs to understand that life is finished now. Then sometimes when the soul crosses over, they might be met by a soul guide, a loving grandma, whoever it is. Some clients don't need that. They can just go where they need to go by themselves. What then follows tends to be, again, there's no normal, but many clients do experience some kind of healing. I've got it here, a car being washed, but it could be the client experiencing a shower. It could be a client walking through a mist, being bathed under the stars. It could be all sorts of different experiences. And because the client is still in a 3D living body, they still need to describe what they're experiencing in human words that ideally that I understand, even though the experiences they're having, they're intangible. So what comes out is saying, I'm in the shower, I'm in an iceberg, but it's not cold. I am hugging an angel. I am immersed in the color blue, whatever it is. But that's just the closest human word that they have to describe that experience. Sometimes there is a past life review, so meaning evaluation of the life that they've just left. That can be with a guide, with a wise one, with an elder, or it can be the client by themselves, just maybe having a nice reflective moment, sitting in a garden, looking at a pond, and realizing things, the lessons that they learned in that life. Sometimes there's a meeting with their soul group, like the closest souls to them, who often appear the same as them. The client might say, oh, they're also blue blobbies. They look the same as me. We all have a funny hat on. And these are souls that often tend to work on similar lessons than the client is working with. So it can be really interesting meeting the soul group. It can be really emotional for the client to meet, oh, these are my sisters, and oh, I love them so much. There can be a debrief. Oh, let me tell you about this life I just had. What did I learn? Sometimes it's more of a social thing. Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you for a while. So it's really interesting to find out, where is the person meeting their soul group? Are they dancing in the meadow? Are they sitting in a meeting room, exchanging information, And often there's a meeting with wise ones. Here on my slide, represented by this lovely lady, but wise ones, elders can present themselves in any way, as angels, as colors, as monks, as with a robe on, with big wings, with anything. And again, asking about appearance can be important. I had a client who said one of the wise ones had really long fingers, and that was to the long fingers, then she held the client's hands to reassure the client. I had a client who had one of the elders had a long beard, and by stroking that beard, the information would come. Or a client would have like certain symbols on the robe that would light up or something. So meeting with the elders, they might get advice about an upcoming life. They're often planning the life. Sometimes a client has an option. They can choose parents, they can choose health issues, they can choose financial circumstances. And sometimes it's more like a package deal, where it's like, okay, the elders have decided that would be really helpful for me. And then at some point, the client will obviously leave that spirit, that place. So it's interesting then to find out at what age of gestation did the soul merge in with the body of the fetus, and why that period. And that, in my experience, that can change to shortly, or that can alternate between shortly after insemination to after birth, when what they call so-called walk-ins, where the soul joins the body of a child or a baby. And if I have to give an average, it's more often people say about 3-4 months, because that's when the pregnancy is secure and it's unlikely to end in a miscarriage. And finding out why that period. I've had a client say, oh, I joined the baby just a few minutes before birth, because that's when my mum decided, okay, I guess I'm having this baby. To just after insemination, when the client was aware that it was going to be adopted, and it wanted to spend as much time with the birth mother as possible. So it can be really individual. And it's an opportunity, same as we saw in QHHT, it's an opportunity for the client to ask any questions, about their life. Why am I here? What's my next step? That yoga course, is that suitable for me? Why did I have that skiing accident when I was little? So really fascinating period of a soul's journey, and really fascinating for us, in my experience, for the client to remember. So just lastly, some further information. Again, the research studies I talked about, Journeys of Souls, Michael Newton. He's one of the pioneers. He's written several other books. Brian Weiss, many people have heard of. Annie Tomlinson. I could name many more. But these are some of the books you could look at. And here's my website as well. I'm on YouTube and on Instagram. If anybody wants to see the Journeys into the Soul, you can look there. But thank you so much. I'm sorry I've gone over time a little bit, with permission, but thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've only gone over by just about 5 minutes, so that's
okay. All right, thank you. So left enough time. I'll stop my share.
Great, thank you. I want to open up the floor to questions. So anyone in the audience, please go ahead, raise your electronic hand, which you will find in the reactions button at the base of your screen. If you have a question or a comment for our speaker, you can go ahead and pose that now before we bring on our second speaker. So Ellie, that was very, very interesting. And I think, well, a few things resonated with me, but I would like to ask you, what I had time to jot down here is, when you mentioned 3 specific areas in which there is relief. So you started with pain relief, then emotional or psychological improvement. And I just want you to please, if you don't mind, just expatiate on that a little bit. Why would someone gain relief for a physical ailment from going back?
Yeah, that quite often happens in QHHT. And what I found, my clients that have experienced that, it's almost like if we see the physical pain or the physical ailment as like an indication from the body, like, hey, there's some work there, there's some trauma there still. Like people when they have repeated migraines, by remembering what happened there and healing that, then it's almost like, well, the message is understood. You've worked with that. It's almost like there's an outstanding email that you haven't read. Once you read that email, then you understand it, because the headache doesn't have to keep coming back. So I think it's that, but it is with that, it's very important to be thorough, to be precise, and to cross all the T's, dot all the I's. But once, for me, in my experience, once the work is done, once a lesson is understood, once a business is finished, it doesn't have to keep coming back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'm thinking here about people who have autoimmune conditions, like you outlined, as well as people who suffer from cervical spondylosis, for example.
Yep.
So there isn't something that can show up on any of the scans that we know of today, but this person is always in physical pain.
Yep.
So for someone who has these autoimmune conditions, then what might be some of the causes?
One of the causes could be that it's a non-human resonant soul, and it's just the soul is struggling with the physicality of the body. Or it could come out that actually this is almost like a service life, and it's the soul coming into a challenging body, but it's to help the family in dealing with that. In my experience, when somebody, let's say I'm learning about self-love, often we experience that topic from different viewpoints. Self-love. So maybe in the case of a child with an illness, let's say, for example, they're learning about tolerance. Then maybe in this life, they're learning what it's like to receive tolerance from other people. Maybe that person has a really loving mother who protects them and looks after them. Maybe it's for them to feel what it's like to have physical challenges. Maybe it's your friend or your sibling that has those challenges, and maybe you're jealous because you're getting less attention. So it's looking at things from a different point of view, and this is just one of the lives in which you're looking at that lesson.
I see. Okay, very, very interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah.
much for that.
Thank you.
Javier, you have a question.
Yes, thank you very much. Quite interesting presentation.
Mm.
Um, do you do online sessions? Because we are here in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, you in England. And what's the cost per session?
Yeah.
And secondly, or thirdly, I have a recurring dream that is
Oh, yeah.
disturbing. Over the years, I'm dreaming the same kind of situation. It's not frightening, but it's disturbing. So
Yeah.
what can be done? Maybe
Yeah.
if Shalima wants to disclose what the dream is, she can, because I
Well,
told her.
yeah, I mean, I'm always interested. Maybe we can chat after. But what can be done is I'd have a chat. I would probably take you back to the source of that, or take you back to that time. I would perceive that as it's your higher mind, your soul go, hello, there's something for you to understand, and we're just reminding you, there's a little bit of work to be done. And yes, I do sessions via Zoom. I cannot offer QHHT, the Dolores Cannon method. Dolores, said it's not possible. We cannot do it. So that has to be done in person. But regression therapy, for example, working with a dream, and also between life spiritual regression can be done online. So yes, I do offer
Is there
online
a course, an average course?
Yes, regression therapy is £300 per session. I don't know how much it is in your local currency. And my sessions are long. For me, 4 hours roughly for a regression therapy session. That's intake and a session. So as you can maybe gather, I'm quite thorough. Some of my clients maybe take a couple of hours for a session. My sessions tend to be 3-4 hours. So we can really be very thorough and leave no stone unturned and just do what needs to be done, basically. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I am looking in the chat and I'm seeing Dr. Roseanne Kanhai indicated here. Within the history of Indo-Caribbean culture, there have been attempts to open windows to a spiritual level that goes beyond the intellectual, not past lives, but an understanding that there is a lot we do not know and maybe cannot know through logic, science, and rationality.
Yes.
So Can you please comment on whether in your experience you've had any clients showing up who may have been able to trace or who may have mentioned any experience at all that could have been linked to Indo-Caribbean indentureship history, which goes back to from 1828, actually, when it began in Reunion Island, to 1920 and even post 1920. In the Netherlands, for example, you have a number of persons from Suriname who would have experienced this under Dutch colonization. Can you think of anyone or any case that might have shown up for you?
Not one that comes to mind. And I must say, for me, yes, the story that emerges in a session is interesting, but I personally, I'm a therapist, so I'm much more focused on the therapeutic benefits, talking to the perpetrator, reuniting with loved ones, doing that work rather than necessarily focusing on the story, although it's of course interesting. So I can't remember having any. I would have to look back at my sessions. That's not to say that there wouldn't be any. It's just my focus tends to be on the therapeutic work that I do with that afterwards.
And you would also have to have a great understanding of that kind of culture back then.
Yes and no. I'm not a great history buff that some people think. And yes, I'm a little bit maybe an expert of torture methods, because that does often come up. Again, because I'm not, I do offer, or actually, no, I don't offer them anymore, past life regressions. For me, it's mainly the therapy. So people come and say, I'm not sleeping, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. And then wherever that source is, yes, it's an interesting story, but my focus is on getting the person sleeping, getting the person to be happier, more successful, or whatever it is. So that's really where that's really where my sort of my focus is. Yeah.
I understand. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing.
And you're very welcome.
We wish you continued success in your practice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me introduce our next speaker, and this is Lena De Silva from the UK. She's a hypnotist, past and current life regression therapist, using a variety of skills in her practice. And interestingly, she's a second-generation channel for Hindu deities. Lena, I'm very anxious to hear how that works. Welcome.
Thank you, Shalima. I'll just share my slides with you all.
Sure.
Okay. So just a second.
Okay, it's up, it's visible to us.
Yeah, okay, great. So I just want to say hello to everybody. And also before I start, I'd like to also say thank you to Dr. Mahabir Shalima Ben for inviting me to speak today. I'd also like to thank you all for being here and listening to myself and Alami talk today with you and taking the time to do so. I really admire the dedication and commitment that they and you have put into serving the Indian diaspora across the world, bringing together a diverse range of backgrounds in the world that we exist. So thank you for that. So, a second. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background to myself. So I myself am Indian, Gujarati, living in the UK. My grandparents on my mother's side and my father's side migrated to East Africa in the 50s and 60s during the British Raj. On my father's side, my grandfather initially left India from Saurashtra, Gujarat, with my grandmother and went to Madagascar, which led him through Zambia, Mozambique, and then eventually settling in Kenya. From my father's side, we've traced back our roots to originate from Persia. Our written family tree has evidence of traces of generations back to the 15th to 16th century for the Gohils, which is also available online, and we have some information on Wiki if anyone's interested in reading that. From my mother's side, who were also from Gujarat, India, the Solonkis migrated to Tanzania, Uganda around the same time. Both sides were given the opportunities that were presented from the British during the time. My mother was born in Porbandar, Gujarat, and my father in Kenya, who later migrated to the UK in the early 70s. All of my siblings were born in Kenya. I've got three older brothers. But for some reason, unbeknown to me, which later was known, my soul decided to be born in a foreign land. So that's how I ended up being in England. So what led me to working with past lives and the subconscious mind was slightly a different route. I had already experienced and had memories of past lives through our culture and my family. I was not only told, but also experienced, having been my grandmother on my father's side when I was a child. I've actually never met my grandmother in person. She passed away a little after my mother and my father were engaged. My mother was a Mataji Bhui, who was very aware. She could see into people quite accurately and tell them things about themselves and their past. The image that you can see on your screen now is of my mother channeling Mataji and me on the left when I was in India last. So coming back to past lives and regression, which we're here to talk about. So I know you've heard a lot in this session, the two sessions that you've had on last Sunday and this one as well, about hypnosis, past life regression, and therapy. So I'm going to try to not talk so much to give you a history via the academic route or of what it is and how you work with it. But I want to give you my perspective and show you how I work with past and current lives and how I incorporate it into my practice and how it could be beneficial for some of you in the community if you wish to explore it. So, through our Indian roots, we're all well aware of past lives. It's not just a novel idea that we wonder about the existence of them or not, but rather in the context that how our past lives have influenced us in the incarnation that we are in now, and how negative and positive influences of our karma, an area which is subject to debate, that leads us to the incarnational experience that we're currently in. So we have that sense of knowing past lives exist. We're born into a culture where it's already a concept that is accepted. So we don't, perhaps in the same way as those who are different and haven't been born into the same culture, don't have the knowledge of past lives existing, question the existence of them in the same way. So there have been many different theories that have been put forward about whether karma exists, even whether you can just drop your karma. Karma is literally action, reaction. I'm sure a lot of you know that. Cause and effect. If I eat late, if I go out late, stay up all night, the next morning, I'm not going to feel so good. If I do that again and again and again, I'll have the same reaction. So we get an idea of karma. When we work with the energy of past and current life experiences, we can empower ourselves with the realization that our past lives are not merely a result of our good or bad karma, but rather the soul's journey through which it learns, grows, expands our consciousness to the awareness of more of what is. So there are different ideas of accessing past lives and memories, and not just through past life regression. Meditation is obviously one of them. We're here to talk today to talk about past life regression that guided by a past life therapist. And even you can even have knowings that come to you that emerge from oneself. So if we look at our sutras, particularly say Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it suggests a technique of samayama to access past lives, a combined level of concentration, deep meditation, absorption that brings you into a focused but profound heightened state of awareness in the meditation, through which we're told that our thought waves can obtain knowledge of our past lives. In accessing past lives through this heightened state of awareness, it's thought that you can break down and dissolve unconscious layers of the mind, what we call samskaras, that are stored, that store these memories as energy and experiences. This is also something that Sadhguru has said before. So regular meditation can often bring you glimpses of past lives and memories, and even the light trance states that we use in past life therapy can bring you to that state. So we talk about past life memories that are stored in our subconscious, but our bodies, which you've probably already heard too, hold memories through our organs, different parts of our skeletal system, the blood, and even encoded in our DNA. Our ancestors live on not only in spirit, but also through us. So we carry positive aspects that help shape who we are today, such as skills and abilities. Some of us are highly efficient, maybe perhaps at doing things, very kind, loving, and so on. And that can stem from traits that previous loved ones have programmed us through our blood. But we also sometimes inherit characteristics and behavior patterns that might not serve us so much, such as emotional reactions, physical ailments, and even torturing thought forms that once plagued those generations that came before us and that of our ancestors. So I believe the lineages that we carry through our energy, our lifetimes, and our bloodlines are really important, more so than we realize. And so accessing them, those parts of us that are unknown, are even more important. Not something that I always believed in until I was awakened to the truth of my lineage, that being the Mataji lineage carried by my mother and others that came before her. So my path awakened to me through my mother's lineage. Matara, as I know her, I'll explain to you a bit later if people want to know more, came to me spontaneously. I didn't know who she was. She wasn't a deity that my mother channeled. She wasn't a deity that my mother worked with. But she kept appearing to me and talking to me in my dream state, in my waking state, through meditations, which then led me to have the experience of the Mataji line. And once you experience that light, it is like nothing else. It's a very profound experience, which is very different. So we often have memories of places in the world that we feel drawn to or attracted to. And not always, but often you might find yourself drawn to a particular location or culture. And it's likely in those instances that you may have had an incarnation in that culture or environment. Sometimes you may get a sense when you interact with someone you don't know. It may feel very familiar, create a deep connection with them. And even though they're a complete stranger, there's just something there which really connects you with that person. Sometimes you may interact with people that it brings up fear with you, or emotions that you might not want to face or feel. And these are often the ones that we will use, that we work with in therapy. We explore them to uncover what history you're holding that prompts you to come to seek therapy. Sometimes it can be that those souls that have hit a nerve are placed perfectly for your interaction to teach you a lesson, or vice versa. Sometimes it can also be that sometimes for you to evolve. Other times it may be a karmic connection that you need to resolve. And sometimes they can even be your own guides edging you forward to evolve your consciousness. It's just to give you a little bit of an idea there of my perspective. So we often incarnate in groups and sometimes as our own ancestors. So they do actually continue to live on through us if we realize it or not. So my mother was often able to tell you who you were in a past existence. And there are many others that have these abilities as well. I think Emily kind of touched on that a little bit too. So she told me when I was younger that I was my grandmother. I just thought, yeah, whatever. But when I was a child, I also had an experience where I spoke out as my grandmother, which I dismissed at the time and thought nothing of it. But then when I explored myself, when I went deeper into myself, had more explorations, I found the answers that I needed, that I discovered that she was right. I had to look at whether it was that I was channeling her or whether it was a past existence. So when you start to go deep, you're able to kind of answer some questions yourself that might come up. My purpose, I discovered, was part of working on some of the karma that I had with my father. Not necessarily bad, but that I had a deep bond with him. But also for other aspects of my purpose that my soul is doing now, the relationships I have and the path that I've taken that I've taken in life shows me the culmination of the workings of the past lives, which are good, some of them good and some of them not so good. So your mind, body, and emotions are so intertwined that working on one often has a ripple effect on the other. Because when you start to move the energy in one area, it can awaken other areas that need attention. You also have a ripple effect on others within your soul groups and souls that are connected to you. When you begin to awaken and work with your energy, think of it as the analogy of the Indra's net. I don't know if many of you know that, but we can talk about that afterwards if you want to. It's the interconnectedness of all, the infinite cosmic net that hangs in the palace of the deity Indra. The memories and feelings that we access in therapy are not only accessible in therapy, and often you can access these yourself and work to resolve them in deep states of consciousness and working with energy. Some clients, however, need to know the story. Some clients need to be able to process it on a level where their mind can process it, where it's conscious for them to what's arising. Others prefer to work on it on an energetic level. It's not that one is better than the other. It's more about what the client needs to overcome the issue that they've come to you with. So often memories emerge from the physical body. When we talk about memories held in the body, often current life experiences and past lives can manifest in various areas of the body. These are often picked up through experiences that you've had from multiple lifetimes. But I'd like to ask you one question. Do you think these are actually in the physical body, or do you think they come from the spirit, your soul? That is your Jiva Atma, your energy emanating from your body. Because it's often thought, especially through traditions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, that the body is merely a husk, a container that holds the spirit or the soul. So these memories that come through the body do not actually come from the body, but the energy that's held within the body that manifests in them. Just something to think about. So that is your Jiva Atma, which is your individual soul associated with the body, mind, and the ego, the conditioned Jiva Atma that holds karma and maya. So I mentioned in my profile that I've worked within research, cancer genetics, and rare disease studies. And while these discoveries during the time were amazing, being part of a team that discovered the PIK3CA gene, the first multidisciplinary clinic set up with for BRCA carriers, I felt that a part was missing. But there was elements that could not be understood. So why would one sibling inherit being a carrier and another not? And then why would the severity of a rare disease result in a gene defect while another sibling would go unscathed? So perhaps the soul journey has a lot more to do with the experience. So I wanted to talk a little bit about oneness. So when we speak of oneness, how much do we really understand of oneness? Often one can try to grasp it in a way that we can only know to the level that we can. So, but if we are carrying within us limitations, competitiveness, the inflated human ego, how can we truly understand oneness? So working to come closer to this, so working through what we are holding within us at an energetic level and a soul level helps us to understand our journey and our purposes to our lives. Through past and current life explorations and therapy, we can work at levels in integrating lost parts of ourselves to access and meet those parts of us that we yearn so much to integrate, that can make us, or at least give us, some sense of wholeness. For we are always evolving. The journey is never finished. Even after we die, our soul continues the journey. So whether that be through accessing memories of lost loved ones, ancestors, or lineages, we hold a wealth of information through our bodies, consciousness, and energy. So I find that if you keep your connection live with your ancestors, which I often do, you are supported, and often you are supported in this way. I often work in the dream state where I can call on my ancestors and work with them to heal in different realms. Those that are psychically attuned often have experiences and guidance in the dream realm to resolve things. And often when working with clients, information can also flow for them in that state. I often have experiences of my ancestors connecting with me for guidance and support, of messages as well for people that need it. So coming back to the idea of karma, this idea that of being subjected to it, we have no choice. We are not victims of our karma. We cannot control when we enter a life, or can we? If you think about yourself at a soul level, and I mean at a deeper state of Atma, not just Jiva, but Atma as in your true self, your innermost essence of you, the pure consciousness of you, the soul that understands exactly when you need to enter the earth, what the alignments of the planets will be when you are born, and how this can align with your soul mission. It also correlates with how you will interact with other souls and your experiences, those of your immediate family, friends, strangers, and all who you will interact with, and also for all that you are to achieve, but also the potential of what you have come into this incarnation with. So I often look at my clients' astrological birth charts to uncover clues that give me insights to my client's journey. So looking at the planets, how they're aligned, how well they're aligned for them, some that are not, how it gives me an indication of what unconscious patterns they may be carrying. So using this information, I'm able to work with clients not just to take them on a journey into their past lives, but also looking at the unconscious patterns and the themes that they're here to experience as the soul is evolving, and how they can harness aspects to empower themselves. So I also look into weak areas that my clients may have in terms of their bodies. Often we have weak and strong areas indicating where you might be more evolved and where you might still be evolving. I often find actually that when I work with people of loss and sadness, which is quite a common one that I've come across in Asians and Indians that I work with, which is an area that. So I wanted to touch on this a little bit. So why do we ultimately work on ourselves to access past lives and memories? So if you look at our flag, the Indian flag, it's actually staring us in the face. The wheel of Dharma, the 24 spokes that represent the 24 virtues, the path to righteousness, right in the center of our flag as a reminder. The ultimate reason for accessing past lives and working through these patterns is to transcend samsara, to achieve moksha, liberation from working through karma. Buddha, in his realization of enlightenment, was able to become aware of all his lives. This is the ultimate aim, I would say. So I say, ask yourself, what are you seeking? So I'd like to now just present two cases just to illustrate some of the work that I do and how I access past lives. So one of them about loss and grief, and another one of awakening. So my first case, loss, I had a client that came to me for loss of her mother. She felt very stuck, unable to get past the idea that her mother had died. It was sudden, unexpected, and she was healthy. There was no indication that she might pass. So my client had been suffering for many years and was unable to get past her grief. She had tried hypnotherapy and it worked for her for a while, but she tried to use it for getting out of being so unhappy with herself, but she was back where she was again. So I worked with her for a period of actually 6 months, which is actually quite rare with regression therapy. Usually you only need a few sessions when you do regression therapy. So I worked with her for 6 months, 1 session a month, and a catch up between sessions for every 2 weeks. We worked with past lives, current lives, dream work, and looking at her birth charts, and also with higher perspective guidance. We discovered her past ties with her mother were from several lifetimes, where they had played a dance of dying each time, and one of them being one or the other. So each time that would happen, one of them would become grief struck and become stuck and not able to move on in their life. In her current life, which we accessed, we worked on accessing earlier years, going back to her 20s, her teens, and then as a baby, where it became apparent that she was adopted, something that she hadn't told me when she first came to me. So her mother that died was actually not her birth mother. We discovered that her birth mother had actually given her up due to being too young at the time and not ready to have a child. So she had a lot of anger that arose in her, which was unconscious to her, which she'd buried, and she'd have sudden bursts of anger, but she didn't know why or how these would happen. And actually, when we looked at her birth chart and it showed a planetary alignment, which actually causes sudden anger, which was helpful for her to know for her case. So she had felt the loss, she had felt the feeling of great loss and grief so strongly relating to it that her mother died, that she thought the grief was only relating to the mother's death, and it was only became apparent that it stemmed from much deeper and much more when we actually were able to look at her birth mother giving her up as a baby. She had felt the loss of her mother handing her over to her new family. She felt insecure, anger, and often when you work with clients, you might find that what I find when I work with them, they might come to me with one issue, but actually you can find that a lot of other emotions start to unravel and unfold as you work with them. So we worked on that to resolve that over a few months. So my second case, on awakening, I saw he was an English Caucasian male that came to see me. And I think you'll find this quite interesting, actually. So he has no connection with India, the culture, the people, lifestyle, nothing whatsoever. He came to me because I was Indian. Okay. He lives in the countryside with his family where he's from. He's from a small village. The family has lived there for generations. They've not really had much contact with the culture at all. And yet he loves to go on holiday to India. He's really drawn to India. He likes the music, he likes the clothes, he likes the sound of Hindi, and so much more. So all these things that make up the Indian culture. So I regressed him to explore any past life connection to India. We went through a few lifetimes, many of which were not related, were quite mundane, which can be quite common when you're doing past life regression to look for a life. And then, because we have many lifetimes that come up and that might not be relevant, and for some reason, that are not relevant, but they come, but not for the reason that they come for. But then eventually you reach point where bingo, you'll access the life that you want to. So we found the life that he had in India. He couldn't say exactly where it was, and sometimes that doesn't matter, but he knows it was in India because it's more about the experience that they're having and what they want to achieve from the session rather than getting precise information of locations and times and so forth. But he was able to give me timelines and talk to me about relationships. So some people who experience lifetimes as a different race can even not like the race that they experience and can be very racist towards the race. And bizarrely enough, even with all the experience of feeling and being that race of another lifetime, they're still quite racist towards perhaps Indians or whatever the race is. So I myself have experienced being Muslim in another lifetime. And I had my own prejudices. We all do. Okay. After all, I grew up being told about stories about partitions of India from Pakistan and Bangladesh and so forth. But after I had that experience, after I had that regression, and it was only in one session, all of that disappeared for me. It was absolutely amazing. So I have no prejudice towards them at all. Their culture, I actually desire their culture now. I'm actually intrigued by the culture. So it's really interesting how things can change for you in accessing your past lives. So coming back to this particular case, he later came back to me for some channeled guidance, and the wisdom that came through for him was that there was more information to come. So he was advised to meditate a bit more for it. After about a month, he came back and he told me that he'd been meditating on it every day for about 20 minutes for the past month. And he'd had a further opening and experienced himself as a Hare Krishna devotee in a past life. So he could see himself. He had his shaved head, he was wearing the robes, everything. And he was with Hare Krishnas around him. He was absolutely shocked. But for him, it took a while for it to integrate and accept it. So often, yes, you take your clients through a regression, they might experience something, but you've also got to help integrate that experience for them, especially when it's a shocking experience or something that they can't quite accept. So, but what happened with this client was this was his missing part of him that he was needing. So even though he had rejected it for so long, after he had experienced it and was able to integrate it, it brought him so much joy that he'd been missing from his life for so long. So I just wanted to end on, there's so much that we don't realize or even know yet. So I often tell my clients to not get locked in to what we know. If you take the theory of multiple universes, the concept actually known through Hinduism and later theorized by the physicist Hugh Everett, who in 1957 proposed the many worlds interpretation, suggesting that all possible histories, futures are actually real, each representing an actual branching of the universe. Through Hindu cosmology, multiverses are thought of as distinct universes existing simultaneously, and that we too exist as other versions of ourselves through parallel universes. So this makes it become a little bit more interesting. So texts also such as the Bhagavata Purana and the Mahabharata suggest enlightened sages and beings like Narada that travel across these different universes. Narada, if you're not sure of who he is, you can look him up, but he's a Devarishi revered as a divine sage known as a cosmic traveler, considered to be the mind-born son of Brahma. So I always ask my clients to be open to the possibilities. So don't get locked in the thoughts or emotions. Yes, we want to work through these, and it's likely we have all experienced trauma at some point in time. And I'm not saying that we bury it, that we don't work through these. We do, we need to, but don't get so fixated on it for it to hinder your growth and path that you're on in becoming stuck. So if you think about multiple lifetimes that we've had, then one mere experience is what a drop in the ocean. So there's so much more that you can explore and experience. So releasing, then, if you have that perspective, can become so much easier, is my point. So I just want to say thank you for listening. If you're interested in how I work and want to know more, my details are on the screen, and obviously you can contact Shalima and Dr. Mahabir as well. So thank you.
Extraordinary, Lena. Thank you very much.
Let me just stop sharing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open to your questions. As we did before, please raise your electronic hand if you would like to say something or ask a question. Ken, go ahead, please. Can you unmute your mic?
Yes. Yes, good afternoon. And
Hi there.
my question has to do, and you have to put it in my perspective, like my background is in engineering. So when we say energy, these past lives, I view it as like they're transmitting. And just like, say, like a radio, if I have a radio, I can tune to different frequencies, and one frequency might give me the news, the next frequency might give me music of
Yeah.
different channels. So is this kind of like similar? Are we using these techniques as sort of like, in a simple way, radio tuner to tune into these past lives? And also, is that measurable? In other words, if that's a signal, could I measure it like somehow? Because, as engineers, we like to, measure things to quantitate them to help us to understand the phenomena?
Yeah. Interesting question. Yeah, definitely. So you're tuning into different frequencies or different areas of energy. You can also, with the energy that you experience or work with, work to access more. You might start at a certain frequency, and as you grow your awareness, you grow more, you open up to more frequency, more energy, more tuning into different things. Measuring it, I'm not sure I can really answer that question. It's such a personal experience when you experience energy and work with it that because it's something that's not seen, it's difficult. But there are physicists that have worked with doing those sorts of things. Yeah.
Okay, Elmique, would you like to add anything to that response?
Sure, yeah. I think with regards to measuring, what I would, again, my intake is more therapeutic. What I would look at, we could measure how the client feels before and how they feel afterwards. Of course, that's subjective, but that can give you some measure. And with regards to tuning into a radio station, that's indeed the analogy I sometimes use with my clients is when I'm talking beforehand, it's like we're buying a train ticket. We could choose to go to Dubai. We could choose to go to Amsterdam. So by talking in the beginning, what is it that we're working on? We're sort of finding the radio station for that particular anxiety, fear, feeling that the person has. So does that make
I
sense?
agree. Can I just add to that? So I love that you said that, Annemiek, but also what I find with some clients is that they can have spontaneous experiences that show up, which you probably experienced as well. And they're not, they might come to you for one thing, but actually what their energy is saying that they need to work with can be something completely different. And that's often because first they need to work on something that's here, and then they can go here. So a little bit like when we work with trauma, sometimes when I work with some clients with trauma, I might not actually, on their first time that they come to see me, take them into that trauma. Because if they're not ready to experience what's going to come up, it's actually going to traumatize them more. They might be able to cope with it. So sometimes what I might do is I might need to work with the client to instill them with courage rather than taking them into that trauma of, I don't know, separation or whatever it might have been. So I might work in a slightly different way to eventually get them to experience that trauma so they're better equipped to be able to handle what comes up and work with it. I hope that answer kind of helps somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope it answers your question. We have another question from Ranveer Singh. Ranveer, go ahead, please.
Good evening, everybody. Great stuff, Men and Kalina. Ask either
Ranveer,
of
you
you.
can turn on your camera if you wish.
I thought it was banned.
No.
Try it.
Okay, well, yeah, I do exist.
Great.
So question was, have either of you heard of Nari Jyotish, Nari astrology? There are leaves. So what it is that normally through in astrology you check birth, place, time, rest of it, which is still valid. I'll do that as well. But with Nari, you give a thumbprint. Apparently everyone's, are you aware of it?
Yes.
Okay, because not everyone is. It's all,
Yeah.
so that does show the previous life that's affecting this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't worked with that, but yes, there is that. And also, so there's also the idea that if you're supposed to experience it, you will have one. There will be one for you to access and know about.
Right, okay. So I found mine from my eldest daughter's, which was a shock when I found mine. He's going through loads and loads, and then he mentioned my parents' name, the wife's name, and I just kind of
Oh, that's
froze.
beautiful. That's really lucky.
It's got some rituals left behind I've got to do yet, but yes, I mean there is this process as well, which very few people are aware of. And I mean it mentions a past life. I'm not sure if it's the one or the direct one, but that's hard to go on. So does your one actually mention the previous life of the person, or does it go back to others, or are they all kind of mushed together when you do the regression?
It can be either or both. It depends on the client.
Right.
Because sometimes you can't dictate what is going to come up when you work with the client. Sometimes it's very specific to what that client needs to become aware of. So, say for example, you have a client, they really want to work on something, but it's just not happening. They're just not able to get over. So, I don't know, just anxiety is just an example. That might be a poor example actually, because anxiety you've got. But just say for example, I got a client that comes to me, wants to work on anxiety. It's just not happening for them. They're just not getting over that. It's just not kind of, sometimes for that person, it's the experience of anxiety that they're meant to have within this lifetime, because for whatever reason, their soul wants them to experience, or their jiva atman wants them to experience that, because perhaps in other lifetimes they haven't experienced it, and it gives their soul a chance to grow from having those experiences. So you get that sometimes with insecurity, especially with, we get it a lot with women. Insecurity is quite a common one. It's like we have to experience that insecurity to kind of overcome and learn what our soul is actually yearning for. Sometimes you don't realize that the experiences that we have, yes, they can feel really kind of lower level emotions and so forth. But if you didn't have those lower level emotions, you won't know what the other side of the equation feels like to a deeper level. So
Right.
it's almost like you've got to experience that. And it's not to say that, oh, my life is not great because I've always got to experience this insecurity or this fear or whatever. Yeah. But it's just when you realize that, and actually when you realize it from your jiva atman, from your soul level, yeah, your experience of life as you move forward becomes very different, because you're now empowered in knowing that actually this experience that I'm having as being insecure is actually part of my purpose. And so now I know that I can move forward in my life knowing that, but work with it with the planetary alignments, with everything else that I know, and work with my own guidance. I know that I can now move forward and actually do something about it. I'm not stuck with it. Yes, it's part of my purpose, but I'm not stuck with that. I can work with that to change how I move forward. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
fine.
Yeah.
Anything Alamic you want to add to it, or?
No, I'm unfamiliar with that, so I couldn't add anything there.
Okay, fine.
Sorry.
Thank you. No worries.
I'm too unfamiliar. What is it? Some kind of a leaf is what
So
you said?
basically, the myth is that, myth in not in the pejorative, but since thousands of years ago, rishis, sorry man, wrote everyone's life down on palm leaf. Before paper, they used palm leaves, so they're written on palm
Palm
leaf.
leaves?
That's right. Before paper in India, manuscripts were on palm leaf, and they got destroyed, but some survived. And you show a thumbprint, and then to the Nari reader, and then what he does is he finds your leaf with your life on, and it
And
tells your
if
past life.
interrupt, but that's if it exists for you as
Yes,
well. Yeah.
if it's burnt up, then you're out of luck. Then you wouldn't sit in front of me anyway normally. Um, um, but yeah, it's so no farming around. But yes, it shows you like mine mentioned parents' names, wife's name, how many kids I had, and it mentioned them by names. You know, that's why I got high blood pressure now, but it's worse then. And it says you the remedies you got to do. Like in your previous life, you behave this way. Normally, it's you were rich and you were spoiled and treat people badly, and that's why in this life. Hopefully not this meeting, but there's something different. And these are remedies you've got to do to kind of balance it out and
Overcome
get
it.
rid of it.
So where did you find the reader?
Wembley, North London. No, he writes from he's Sri Lanka, and I was told by a friend of mine who you know 11 languages and teaches my kids maths and teaches Sanskrit. He told me about him in 2008,
You can
and he
also look up the work of Dr. Pillai. He does some of that work, which
right.
is quite
There could be
interesting.
several.
No,
The
no,
one, yeah,
yeah,
the one I've got is
Dr.
so
Pillai?
Dr. Pillai, yeah.
Is
Thank
he
you.
is he practicing in where? In the UK?
Yeah, from no, India. In South India, I think it is. But yeah, if you Google him, it'll come up. I can put his name in the chat if you want.
Yeah, his full
Um,
name would be nice.
yeah,
the leaves are written in Tamil, Old Tamil. So I'm
yeah.
not sort of the person
Okay.
saying
Southern
I do
India,
trust him.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is predominantly south.
South
Yeah,
Indian and Sri Lanka, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, Lena, when you were speaking earlier about your client thank you very much, Ranveer.
No
Very,
problem.
very interesting.
I'll put his website in as well. Yeah,
Good
sorry,
then. Sorry,
Shalima.
when you were speaking earlier about your client who had the Hare Krishna experience, I thought it odd because I knew that Hare Krishna was fairly recent. So 1966, and the movement really started, ISKCON really started in the US. So going further, apparently that whole movement I'm finding here, and maybe you could corroborate, stemmed from a 16th century Bengali Bhakti tradition called Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So is it possible he was really taken back to our life in that 16th, 17th, 18th century rather than 1966 and coming forward?
Possibly. I can't answer that question because I don't know, but possibly, yeah.
Because it seems to me if you're talking about past lives, how old was he? I mean, unless he was a child, he would not have lived a full life yet. I'm not too sure how far back
So
your past
you
life
mean
would go.
my client that you're talking about?
Yes.
So my client went back to 1800s. Yeah, and so I took him back and he was a child child, when I say child, I mean he was like 13. But
Mm.
then we went through that lifetime at different points, but not so sort of not every year. The way we do regression, which Annemiek will know as well, we kind of take them to points in that lifetime that are important for them to access. So we will take them back to the next significant part of that lifetime. Because as you can
Okay.
imagine, if you were going through each year, you would be doing the session for way over a day. So yeah, so it's usually sort of you'll take them to parts which is important for them to access, but it's not actually us taking them there, it's we're guiding them, but all the information is actually coming from the client. So it's actually you that takes yourself to the experience or the point in that lifetime that you need to access.
So
Yeah.
a question to both you and Elmeek now. Okay, no, I think you said what inspired you to really get into this. But Elmeek, can you please just share with us um, what made you believe that there was such a thing that was possible, this past life regression experience?
Yeah, for me, it's always been, I've always sort of known, and I've always found it fascinating to see. I always had a feeling like there's more than this, 3D life that we experience here. So for me, it was a very natural step. And I think especially after going to university studying psychology, after working in banking and working in office jobs, I felt like I'm not actually helping anybody here, and I wanted to help. And in my experience, that's how, especially when I do between life regression with people, we all come to help. Nobody comes to acquire a big bank account. We all come to help each other, and that's what I felt called to do. And maybe I just want to touch on the previous question. We say that the records that exist, that's fascinating. I think I would perceive that as it's one of the ways that your team, your spirit guide, your helpers have got to give you information. If your record doesn't exist anymore, then they'll find another way. They'll give you a dream. They'll whisper something in your ear. They might give you synchronicities, certain numbers, certain names. They might communicate to you by sending you a little bird all the time. Or there's lots of different ways that our team can communicate with us and give us information. Having a session, guided by someone like myself or Lena can help to interpret those symbols and that language. But indeed, having those records, the way I perceive it, it's just another way of getting that information, if that makes sense.
Yeah, quite. Thank you, Dr. Mahabir.
Yeah, I want to do this past life hypnosis sometime, but I am skeptical if I get into this deep state of meditation or trance, I wouldn't be able to get back to normal.
Mm.
And if I do get back to normal, can it be in a negative way? Can I get deranged or have some kind of different orientation, bipolar or something like that?
Yeah, you want to take that first, Lena, or shall
I
I
was going
go
to ask
first?
you to take it, but
Yeah, all
I'll
right.
go
Yeah,
afterwards. You go on.
I can answer. Yeah, I mean, it is impossible for people to stay in hypnosis. There have been thousands of sessions like that all over the world, and it's just physically impossible for the human body to hold hypnosis for a long period of time. After a time, maybe you need to visit the bathroom. Your bladder will just tell you, hello, I need to empty myself. Maybe there's an itch in the nose. There comes a time when the body will automatically come up. So it's impossible to stay in hypnosis. And I have never heard of any ill effects, because, again, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I'm sure I'm not, but I may be the best hypnotherapist in the world. But if the client does not want to go, does not feel safe, nothing will happen. So it's anybody that has a session with me, they hypnotize themselves. I just go along for the ride. I help to ask the questions and make sure the client is physically comfortable, but the client does the work. I don't lead. I follow the energy is the best way I can describe it. So if there would be any information in your personal soul's history that is detrimental or unhelpful for you to know, that will simply not come up. The very extreme example I sometimes give to clients is to say, if heaven forbid it turns out that in a past life, I was Hitler, and I would imagine that knowing that about myself would be horrific. I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I was capable of doing that. So if anything like that would be so detrimental, I couldn't live my life knowing that about me, then that knowledge will simply stay hidden where it was. In a similar way, if I were to ask you to provide me with your PIN number for your bank account, you would go, "What? Wait a minute, what are you doing?" So it's not like you wouldn't be under my control. I've never tried to make people bark like a dog. For me, that's not interesting, but I think there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes on there. For me, I'm interested in the therapeutic effects, and I follow the energy. You decide where you go. You and your higher mind, your team determine where you go. So in my experience, it's entirely safe and there is no ill effects from it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would say, if you did have a session and you accessed something that was unpleasant to you, which can happen, it's not that it can't, it would be because you're supposed to experience that. Okay. If you're supposed to experience that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be left with that though. So if you came to someone like Alamik or myself, I wouldn't leave you in that state feeling all deranged or whatever. We would work with you to get you into the space where you feel whole again to carry on. The object is not to just uncover these memories for you,
Yeah.
but it's also to work with you on a therapeutic level, as Annemiek said, to bring you back to whole. Is to bring those parts of you back to you so you can accept, even if it is bad, but for you to be able to bring that into your being, to come to a space of being whole. Because that part of you that might be missing, even though it might feel horrible to access it, when we work through why you've experienced that, the story that you're left with is completely different because you have an understanding of why you experienced that. You have an understanding of where it comes from. And then it changes the picture because you're looking at it from your soul perspective, your Atma perspective, your Jiva Atma, that can then tell you and integrate that experience so that you are able to carry on. And no, like she said, no one is ever left in hypnosis ever. You can go into lights, trance states like alpha. You do it actually on a daily basis. You do that. So if you say, for example, you were having a drink, you were on the beach, which I'm very jealous that you guys in Trinidad and these places can do because I'm in cold England. Yeah, you might sit on the beach and you could be having a drink, looking out of the sea. You become very relaxed and your mind just starts to drift and you start to think of a nice experience. Yeah, you're actually going into a light trance state, a state of alpha. So it's nothing to be feared of as such, is what I'm saying, is that you kind of do it anyway, and you come out of it when you need to. Your mind goes through different states all the time. So you'll never be left in that state. If you were very fearful and if you came to us and we were going to put you in a state to access some lives or an experience, but you weren't going there because you were fearful, then you would be stopping your own experience to have that experience rather than it kind of not happen for you.
Ken, go ahead.
Yes, please bear with me on this one. But my thought is that, like, for example, if my grandfather could travel in time forward to my room where I am right now, right at this present moment, he would think like I'm talking to ghosts because I'm viewing your image and talking to you, right? So, but that is done through technology, electromechanical technology. Could the communication with past lives and other lives be a type of biotechnology that maybe we don't understand? Like I don't understand it, but could it be a biotechnology, just like we are using the internet to communicate with one another right now?
Absolutely. I'd say anything's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe I can add, the more I do this work, the more I know that I know nothing. I know nothing. Anything is possible. And I believe there's a lot of things we've yet to learn. So yes, absolutely. And I think, as I said, whatever means is necessary to communicate, that is to bring that message, that is what will be used.
When my grandmother saw television for the first time, she from St. Vincent, in those days they didn't have TV or anything, but when she came to America and saw television for the first time, she said, how did they get the men and women inside of the box?
Yeah.
So in other words, I'm thinking that maybe this is a type of technology that tunes us, use the word tune again, that tunes us into these other lives, but we just don't fully understand. And maybe you only get to that communication by these states, these the meditation or hypnosis or what have you.
Yeah, yeah. Also, maybe interesting to mention is, if your grandfather were to be in the room with you now, he is that energy is still your grandfather, but remember, from the place where he is now, he has got a lot of further insight. So it's almost like he's your grandfather plus all the insight and the help he has there. I've had people saying, oh, I'm going to school here. So it's not like, how do the people get into this box? He will have gained a further understanding since his death from the place where he is now, if that makes sense.
Amik, I think I just had a memory of something that, based on what you said, which I think could help. We think that the people who are in our family belong to us only, but that's not true. These are souls that are transitioning, and they do not belong to us. When they are in that particular body and they are associated with us, yes, we are relative. But the soul continues to transition. And death is one of the ways in which it transitions. Birth is another way. Is that correct, Almik?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
So our family members do not really belong to us. It's just in this realm, they are there to assist us to get a better understanding of what our purpose is and hopefully fulfill that purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Ranveer?
Yeah.
If I can just add to that. So through Hinduism, we honor our ancestors. Yeah, through kind of we have certain days where we would what we call it Sharad actually, when you honor your ancestors that have gone before you. And it's about creating a connection with them and keeping that connection alive because they can help you from beyond the realm of, like Annemiek saying, being your grandfather in this lifetime or and they've moved on. Okay, but there's also the aspect of you that is still connected to you. That comes back to the Indra's net, yeah, of with us all being connected in a certain way that we can't understand sometimes because it's so vast, but they're still connected to you. And this is why you can still access their support and even beyond them, the support that they receive, because we are all interconnected on a higher level. That makes sense. Yeah.
I hope it does for members of the audience. I think one of the key things that I realized from Ken's question just now is that even if it is that our program did not make sense in the beginning, what it has done is it stimulated thought.
Hmm.
And that's the best thing that we could hope to achieve. Ranveer, you have the final question.
Thank you very much, Lena. I actually want to bridge what Ken said and what Almec and Lena were talking about, because Ken, you mentioned about technology and biotechnology. Well, actually, that technology you speak about and the engineering you use is only possible with maths. Now, that maths is only possible because you have decimal number system from India. See, and Mayans and Aztecs use 20 because of the feet as well. But do you know the concept of zero is not rational? It comes from the Jain Buddhist idea of moksha, nirvana, nothingness. I mean, you can have one item like one mobile phone. You can't have nothing mobile phone. So there's the bridge. Without that spirituality, no zero. Without a zero, no modern technology. We won't be sitting talking here. I won't work in IT. You won't work in engineering. So yeah, that's where the bridge comes in. So it is actually joined already. That's it.
Fascinating. Yeah, fascinating. So, ladies, I want to thank you all very much for sharing all that you've done. And to members of the audience, thank you very much for your questions, your comments. And Navin just raised, can I achieve similar results with meditation and astral projection? Navin, what results are you hoping to achieve?
Just similar like access and past memories, that sort of
Past
thing.
life memories?
You
Yeah.
can definitely work in that realm. I've worked with out of body experiences and that and on the astral sort of stuff. So the only thing I would say is working in the astral realm is you want to try and go a little bit higher than that. So you can meet beings in the astral plane which can impersonate other beings. So if you go beyond that, if you can go a little bit higher in your sort of awareness of it, you can come to the truth of things more so than if you just go to the astral. In out of body experiences, I don't know, I think you could experience, yeah, you could experience past lives. The difference, what I would say to you is that when you go into those experiences through meditation or other means, when you access a past life, to know whether it's a true past life, go with the feeling of it and your gut, what your gut tells you, because often when you experience a true past life, it actually feels real. You know from within you, you have a knowing that that past life is real. Often, actually, just to mention, in therapy, we work with clients and we take them through different parts of these in regression therapy to different past lives. Sometimes we take them through these where there's been sort of questions that have raised of whether it's actually true or not. Now, the reason that happens, I believe is that in regression therapy, sometimes your mind and your emotions are processing. So your mind is very quick to jump on what it wants to kind of and how it processes. So if your mind gets in the way there, what's happening is actually some processing rather than a past life experience. But you will know the difference with a past life. When it's a real past life experience, you will feel it. It's an embodied experience. You can feel it. It's part of you. You're actually that person that it's happening to. And it's the same when you have an out of body experience. That out of body experience is exactly the same as how you and I are interacting now. You can feel it. It's completely like this state of being.
Thank you.
So just before we close today, can you both Lena or and Elmi, please just comment on when you are in a state of, I don't know which state this is, you all will know better. You can see colors. And can you just identify what, for example, if you are seeing purple, what would that mean? Or if you are seeing green, what would that mean?
Yeah, okay. So there's an idea of color therapy, okay? And this is my view. Anime might have a different view, we all do. So when you see different colors, often even in color therapy and so forth, there are kind of meanings that are assigned to these colors that, I don't know, green means, even with the chakras when we talk about it, green can mean this, kind of your heart.
I mean, in terms of meditation, you're now getting
Yeah.
into a state. So it happens during namaz. Once I put my
These colors.
forehead
Yeah.
down there for a specific period of time, there are colors that I see.
That's beautiful that you're having that experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to you is what I would ask you, because although like collectively sometimes we say, oh, this color means this, that color means that. I would say to you, no, what does it mean to you as your individual consciousness? Because what green means to you might not mean the same thing to another person. So it's for you to go inside, go deeper, and ask yourself, what does that color mean to me? What does it mean for me?
Okay, thank you. Elmi, could you like to add anything?
Yeah, I very much agree with Lena, and also the meaning can change. What green meant for you maybe last year might change in a few years' time. Could also be interesting to mention that Michael Newton, he's a pioneer in between life regression. He sort of categorized the different soul colors, and he sort of stated, oh, yellow souls, for example, souls that feel themselves as yellow in a between life state, they're only beginner souls. And purple souls, oh, they're the most advanced, they're master level. But we found that actually that is not the case. Colors can change throughout, not only throughout the session, but it can have a personal meaning, a personal significance for the client. It can just be, purple can mean, oh, we're learning about flowers rather than I'm so advanced. And also perhaps interesting to note that advancement, oh, whether I'm more advanced than you, that's very much a human concept. Souls in that state, they're not working saying, oh, I'm more advanced than you. I'm saying, hey, great, I'm working on love, you're working on patience, fantastic. So, but yes, the colors are personal. So if in a meditation you're aware of the person green, perhaps saying, what do I feel in my body? How do I feel? Do I feel happy? Do I feel a bit sad? Do I feel anger? What's coming up for you there? And work with it that way and find out the personal meaning for you. What does green mean for you? Yes.
I'd also say just one thing that's come to me is to kind of not project with your mind, because it's so easy to do. So sort of if you think about sort of like when we talk about seeing light, so people often associate just because it's white, that's like, oh, white light, But what if you saw black instead of white? But that's still the same. Okay, it's that state of nothingness or oneness. Yeah, just that kind of, we talk about it as the sheet sometimes. Yeah, but you see a black sheet rather than a white sheet. Does that make it any better or worse? Or is it just different?
It could be an emotional state at that moment as well that's influencing what you are seeing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm just taking note. On YouTube, Diana and Gani Singh.
Yeah, I
Thank
will
you for
contact him.
posting.
Yeah.
He says any of the hypnotherapists were trained by Dr. Richard Bangler, and the reason he's asking is because the person in Trinidad who does this type of therapy is Dr. Lionel Gaskin Myers in St. Augustine. Yes, we're familiar with him, who was trained by Dr. Bandler. So I guess his question is asking, because you all are outside of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm not too sure if you all would be familiar with Dr. Richard Bangler. Does that name ring a bell?
Is he the founder of NLP? That's
It's
Richard
possible,
Bandler, isn't it?
neurolinguistic programming. Yeah.
Yes, I have trained in not by Dr. Richard Bandler himself, but I am trained in neurolinguistic programming. Yes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Okay, so Ramesh Ramtran, nice to have you. He says the program is great and stimulates a lot of thought. I'm very, very happy about that. Thank you very much. So you all, it's been a lovely session, and two members of the audience, feel free if you feel that you need some kind of assistance by way of Lena or Almik and the services that they can provide, and you can also rely on those persons who appeared in our program last week. If you did not get the contact information, we would be happy to give those to you. And let's work on the issues that we are trying to face, which cannot be healed or has not yet been healed. I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So at this point in time, let me now formally close the program. And I would just like to remind everyone that you can feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books. And as always, we really appreciate your suggestions, as well as we are doing this voluntarily. So if you would like to make a donation, it will help to allay some of the costs that we have to manage. Our topic next week will be the significance of Urdu and Bhojpuri languages in the Indian diaspora. So I want to say thank you very much to our principal planner, Dr. Kumar Mahabir. Thanks to our IT and graphic consultants, Navin, who's here with us. Navin, and could you please go ahead and bring up the link for that song? And we'd like to thank our graphic consultant, Daryl Gransom, as well as all the others in the team who contribute on a weekly basis and have contributed in the past. So we're asking that you please visit, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see most of our past recordings. Thank you all very much for being with us. And now I will ask that Navin bring this particular number to you. We just want to close with a song done by Indian Idol Salman Ali, fabulous singer. And this is in celebration of Eid al-Fitr. Assalamu alaikum.
दिन ये खुशियों का मिलके मनाए सभी, रहमतों से सजा है समा, नेमतों की हुई आज बरसात है, हुए रोशन ज़मीं आसमां, रोज़ेदारों को ये रब का इनाम है, दिन हमारा ये मेहमान है। मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक हो, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक हो, मुबारक सदका है मुस्तफा रज़िया मान ले, हमने मांगा है जो वो अता बख्श दे। माहे रमजान में दी जो कुर्बानियां, हम गुनाहगारों को तू जज़ा बख्श दे, हम गुनाहगारों को तू जज़ा बख्श दे। जब खबर आई के चांद की रात है, हर तरफ ही मोहब्बत का पैगाम है। चेहरे रोशन है जैसे के बारात है, चेहरे रोशन है जैसे के बारात है। शुक्र कैसे करूं तेरा एहसान है, दिन हमारा ये मेहमान है। मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक हो, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक, मुबारक ईद मुबारक हो, मुबारक ईद मुबारक।
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Navin.
Thank you all for joining and staying.